Welcome to the Wellfuel Podcast, your spot for everything gut health, detox, hormones, a healthy home, mold, and everything in between. I'm your host, Isabel Smith. I'm an integrative and functional registered dietitian and the founder of Isabel Smith Nutrition. Come closer. Come closer. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Wellfuel Podcast. This is our 100th episode, and I am so excited to have the people that I care most about in the world on the podcast with me. So I've got my dad, who you guys have all been cheering along, Elliot, my mom, Kate, and you guys know Polly. So I thought this would be fun because I'm going to let my parents chime in a little bit about me as a child, because not only is this the 100th episode, but the business is turning 10. We'll have just turned 10 by the time this episode airs. So this is a pretty big occasion because, we have a lot to celebrate here, including all of you guys who've been cheering us on and following us along. So Mom and Dad, welcome. You guys have been just watching my dad fight pancreatic cancer. So here he is.
Good morning.
It's not good morning by the time whoever's listening.
Well, that's true. Good afternoon. Good day. Good evening.
And Mom, welcome.
Thank you, Isabel.
And of course, hey, Polly.
Hey.
So everybody in this podcast is actually, before we hop into frying me a little bit, because it's always fun for you guys to know about me as you guys listen so intently. You are on camera, so you should watch here instead of the Olympic basketball, please. So everybody in this room is having their own health journey. So, my mom has had her own battle with endometriosis most of her life and now is in Lyme disease treatment. My dad, as you know, has just gone through his pancreatic cancer treatment, 3 surgeries, and is out the other side, which we're so grateful for. And then Polly's just embarked on his Lyme journey. So from everybody in the room here, what's one thing that you can think of you've learned or has been helpful in your journey? Like, what's something that comes to mind that when I ask that kind of question that you guys think of? Mom, you can go first.
First of all, good morning and thank you, Isabel. We love being here and celebrating you and Paul and the family and all of our unbelievable health challenges that we've had in a very short period of time. Patience. Patience is the number one for me, because any journey that you undertake, you don't really know the end goal, but you can only hope and pray and also have tremendous patience to get to the other side of that.
Yeah, patience is one. We were talking about that last night as a family, that patience, Paul's in his part of the journey, I'm in my part, you're in yours, and, sort of like we were discussing.
Whether you've broken hands or, whatever your journey is, it's really about patience.
Patience is really important. And I say it a lot, generally, that, letting go of the timeline and, your expectations. And I know, Dad, that's been definitely part of your experience.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, you started one place and then they were like, oh, now this. And then you were like, okay, fine. And then they were like, okay, now this.
And all I could say was, okay, fine.
Yeah.
My most important point is to listen to Isabel.
Yeah. Okay. That's nice. Thank you for plugging that one. But really, I
started out on this journey over a year and a half ago. And immediately Isabel jumped in and through her contacts and personal experiences got me involved in a path with the nice folks at Memorial Sloan Kettering and Columbia Presbyterian, which eventually helped me get through this. So I feel very lucky, in addition to have been also very lucky to have such fine people, Isabel, Kate, Paul, all behind me on this trip and on this journey, and especially the fine folks at Memorial Sloan Kettering, which
and one more piece, right? Because I was trying to throw lots of hokey pokey things at you along the way, and there were some that you accepted and some that you were fair enough wishy-washy on. But Dad also did magnet therapy with Dr. Garcia, which has been really, I think, transformative.
Very, very helpful throughout the entire process.
Yeah. So magnet therapy, magnets are super strong. They can push and pull fluids and all sorts of things. And so Dr. Garcia had specific protocols for Dad to help shrink the tumor. And along with the chemo and everything else, which you tolerated so beautifully, which was such a miracle,
yes,
the tumor kept shrinking So
I think what they worked hand in hand, believe it or not. I had to be open about things. My father, God bless him, was not quite as open when he worked through prostate cancer. And I felt that I had to be open. Certainly it's many years further on, but I had to be open to new things within certain limits of possibly helping me complete this journey. And it was helpful. It has been helpful. And I will continue on it going forward, and have continued on it going forward here. I'm still in the process of clinical trials at Memorial Sloan Kettering, which I have been very thankful for, because they are observing me rigorously. And at this point in time, I don't think that's a bad thing.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
So has this process like kind of forced you to be like a little more open-minded with stuff? And have I forced you to be a little more open-minded with things?
To a certain extent, I'm still not flying away at your every wish, but I am have been certainly very happy to have been and lucky enough to been able to try some different things, which I believe have helped me along this path.
Much more open.
Much more open-minded.
Much more
open-minded.
Instead of having a fast no, it's like, oh, I should
Yeah.
think about that. Much more
I
open-minded.
think that's like generally a helpful way of going about life, right? It is like I'm learning to not say no immediately, and to, especially when my dear Polly over here suggests things and I'm like, no, I'm like, well, maybe you'll think about this differently. So Paul, I should say Paul, as you guys know on Instagram, I call him Polly. Many people who meet us in the street will say, hey, Polly. So Polly, Paul did an Ironman last year, and that I think stretched you as a person, and, you know, your process of getting through training was really beautiful to watch. And then pretty soon after that, you sort of health-wise hit a wall, and you've been going through your own journey. What's that been like for you?
Yeah, I think the Ironman churned up a lot of stuff that was buried. I'd say probably one of the biggest things that I've learned about health is that it's not necessarily binary. You are not healthy, or you're not healthy or not. There's a lot of different variations of it. You can be healthier, you can be more unhealthy. It's not just a one thing, so you can always kind of improve. And it's not a destination of health, of like you get there, you eat enough salad, you do this, you exercise, and then you're done. It's an ongoing process of making sure that you have enough things as your body evolves and grows, right? So I'll be on the earth for almost 40 years now, and what I was doing when I was 15 years old in high school doing sports is a lot more different than what I need to do now when I just did an Ironman. So it's all the things of life change and they impact. So it's a journey, and how I approach health has probably changed a lot since the Ironman.
Yeah, it's been, and like, you know, from my perspective, watching him train 20 hours a week and then suddenly what?
20?
25?
A little bit more than that.
Okay, something like that. And then suddenly his body was sort of like, you know, no, all of a sudden kind of no.
It was after training.
After training, you also were training in a moldy basement, which also probably didn't help the whole process.
Not too much at the end though, because it was outside mostly.
Right. Anyway, like there had definitely been some.
Right, but I felt
pieces.
great up until the Ironman. Then a couple weeks after the Ironman, my body was not recovering the way that it would have. Should have.
Yeah.
It was just inflamed and everything. And like I said, I think it churned up a lot of things that were probably an underlying issue that wasn't being presented because it was just deep down. And then the Ironman and a lot of the stress and stuff on my body probably brought it to the surface. And that's when it started to present itself.
Yeah. So what can you give those listening kind of like a micro window into like what you're doing right now with the Lyme? And
taking about 500 pills a day. I have to look at an Excel spreadsheet on when I'm allowed to drink alcohol, if at all, what pills I'm allowed to have.
God, this sounds overwhelming for people who are listening. So can you
It's not. It's a lot, but if you put intention into it and put some and have a plan, it's very attainable. But it's something that you need to focus on. There's a lot of there's a lot of science behind what we're doing, and there's a lot of tests to make sure that everything's going the right way. Like, all right, should we test to see if you have Lyme? Yes, I did have Lyme. So then let's go through, do this. All right, let's check for these other infections that usually comes with Lyme. Okay, so we did that, and then some of these medications, they can have adverse effects on certain people, and they react to it in different ways. So let's make sure your kidney function is going well, your liver function is going well, and if it is, we'll continue. If not, then we obviously have to adjust. So it's like I said, it's not like a binary thing where you do one thing, get rid of it, and then be done with it. There's a lot of different things that come into play. So it's a big equation with a lot of different variables that change on a given day, in a given time, in a given way. So it's just a constant reevaluation that has to take place.
So you guys just learned a little insight into Paul's brain versus mine, which you guys know by now. Paul is an extremely analytical, literal person. So for him, this has been a very like mathematical equation, which is hard in the healing process. And I think that that's stretched him also, right? Because I think this has been a lot more like trust and leaning into the process more than like you either used to or like have, you know, kind of done in the past. What are the things that you're hoping to, you know, gain or feel better as a process that like, you know, kind of in the background, like how do you want to feel on the other side?
Well, the thing that I was saying before is that health isn't binary, in that you are healthy or you're not. That's not necessarily the case. So there's a lot of different goals that you can set for being healthy.
What about you? Sorry.
So some people could have certain goals of want to feel better energy, physical goal of wanting to be able to run a 10K, mental goal of improving mood and such. And so what I've been facing is that I feel like as a result of some of the health issues that I've been capped a little bit with my potential because I've had certain things where I don't necessarily sleep all that well. My body is very inflamed, where I'm taking up more space in my clothes than I normally would, and I'm not really eating that much. I'm still working out a decent amount, and it's not really coming to be it's not something that I would be easily able to move like I used to. I would be able to go for a run, do a workout regimen for 2 or 3 weeks, and I'd be able to fit my clothes a little bit better. Now that just does not happen. So what I'm looking to achieve is, based on the body that I've been given, optimize it and get more efficiency out of it with a better mood, better sleep, feeling better, fitting in my clothes better, and just overall the baseline of general health to be elevated from where it is now.
I love it. I think that, you know, everybody has different goals. Like my mom's also in Lyme treatment. So like, Mom, what are you hoping to achieve?
Well, I knew I was infected. I kept saying something is the matter. I could feel the heat inside me. I knew I was not fine. I did not have the energy. I was awake all night. My heart was beating, pounding. I knew I was infected. So actually for me, I was really happy to find through Isabel and the team that you brought forward the fact that I have Lyme. And it's different as we talked about last night, the three or four of us, each case is different.
Yeah.
So Paul's treatment is very different than mine.
Yeah.
I can only tolerate so much. So I'm on a completely different journey. But in the first 3 weeks of the treatment, I'm dramatically better.
Yeah.
So I'm just couldn't be happier to have found that, because I knew that for a long time I was infected.
Yeah. And I think interestingly, you know, my mom's, no surprise, my mom's symptoms are very similar to mine, crazy allergies. You had a lot of like skin stuff.
And all the skin stuff and the food allergies and the
skin.
Everyone
boils.
that travels with me or knows me well knows that I have been infected, or I wasn't I was just not feeling right.
Yeah.
So now I really feel that I'm on a great journey.
Dad, do you see a difference in Mom in the last couple of weeks?
Oh, yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Good answer.
Well, no,
No.
I've had to, having been married almost 44 years to my bride to my right, I've had to see her through a variety of health issues. And it always is a worry to me because there's not always a definitive answer. And we have to go on a journey and a search. This is the most recent one. We had one very early on when we were married, which took a number of years to get through. And this one has cropped up more recently. And it's been frustrating for me to watch because we still can't we have not been able to until just recently, to get to a place where she was actually feeling better.
Yeah.
And therefore had the energy that she needs to have to get through a day.
Yeah. And I think also, like, after the journey for Dad, you taking care of Dad, Paul's been through, sort of trauma in the last year too, with his brother passing very suddenly. Like that also, I think, takes a toll for sure.
Sure.
On the system and on the immune system, right? And so I think that all these pieces add together, right?
Absolutely.
Trauma and, trauma comes in many different forms and all of that. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I see a huge difference both, luckily, and everybody sitting around the table. Little Henry here, who's sitting in Paul's lap, was having seizures when we were living in the mold house. Sasha was having a ton of anxiety. So as a family, we're all sitting here, I don't think any of us are necessarily like where we want to be, but we're all
super grateful for where
grateful we are. and on the
super
way,
grateful.
And so, I think all the bits and pieces we went out for dinner last night. We were all talking about, I was mostly talking actually about, the layers,
Yes,
the layers of health and how we work through infection and what that looks like and how frustrating and complex that can be.
And I also think listening to the fact that there is something the matter, right?
Yeah.
So we all knew in
Yeah.
all of our different individual journeys that something was not right.
Right.
And I think you have to hear that.
Yeah, you have to. And that's hard. And that's been hard. I know that's been hard for you, right? Paul is sort of listening and sort of seeing new limits as they pop up. And
well, I think what's difficult for me too is that, like I said before, it's an equation with a lot of different variables in it. So you change one variable, it's tough to silo and figure out and really go in on one thing. So in the last year, sure, I had a bunch of trauma with some family stuff, with my brother passing, did the Ironman, which again is probably a lot of physical trauma. There's a lot of things that are going through that. Starting Lyme treatment, work-life balance, stress with all of that. There's a lot of things that are going on. So to try and identify how one feels with doing Lyme treatment, it's difficult for me in that process to say, this is making me feel better, or wait, did I just get some good sleep last night and this is really what's happening? So it's difficult for me to try and figure out what is going on and what should be happening when you're doing a process of, all right, take this antibiotic, take this supplement, take this. What should happen? Doesn't necessarily always happen, but it's also being able to say, what is your goal? What are you looking to achieve? Are you moving towards that? And is this helping? It sounds very simple to me when you say it like that, but to really identify and see what is contributing and benefiting you is a much bigger task than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Learning to listen, especially when you haven't really had to, Paul's had been blessed with most all of his life, the amazing ability to just perform physically, right? You were a decathlete in college, you have run multiple marathons, you have, done CrossFit, competed in CrossFit competitions, all that kind of stuff, done an Ironman. And then I remember you being why can't I keep up with my usual potential? Why did this happen so fast? How did I get here? I think that's been hard.
Yeah, I went for a 3-mile run and couldn't do 10-minute pace. I was gasping for air.
Which for a lot of people would be a really solid pace, but for somebody who's used to their normal being their normal and then being I can't even keep up with a fraction of my normal.
Well, I feel better. I went for a 3-mile run the other day and was doing 7:30 pace, which
there you go.
much different and I felt fine. So it's like, again, what is your goal? Like if someone's happy with a 10-mile pace, then that's awesome. But I know what I've done before and I know what I'm capable of. So that's what I'm trying to get to is not necessarily like, I don't think everyone can run a 7:30 pace. I mean, we were talking about it last night with some of the Olympics going on. If every person had the mindset to push their body to the maximum limit, how many people do we actually think are physically capable of competing at an Olympic level? Probably not everyone. It's not, someone has to maybe work harder than the other person. There's maybe some God-given physical talent that someone has more so than the other, but the other person outworks them. There's all of those things. But for me, being able to push myself to go to 7:30 pace feels what I should be able to do, and someone else might be 10-minute pace is awesome. Like it's everyone's individual goal and what they're able to do and what they're trying to do. So that's where it was different for me. For 10-minute pace was not what I know I can do.
No, and I also think when there's a lot of noise, it's hard to see improvement. I know for you, Dad, Mom and I and Paul would be like, I don't think he, like before you got sick, before we knew what was going on, I don't think he knows what's happening. And then you and I've had conversations since then. You're like, oh yeah, I definitely feel better now than I did then.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I think sometimes when you don't know that you could feel better, you aren't like fully kind of in touch with where you are. I think you don't see it right until afterward.
Quite possible. Absolutely.
Which is like definitely.
I mean, unless you're feeling horrifically bad, and I never felt horrifically bad going into this. This was the thing. It was sort of discovered as I took my annual checkup. But having said that, on a general day in and day out basis, I am feeling immensely better than I felt prior to that.
Yeah.
Well, prior to treatment too, you didn't get like hit by a truck where you were like, all of a sudden it was probably day by day, gradually you started to feel worse and worse and worse.
Yep. Absolutely, Paul. Absolutely.
I also think it's great to know that you can really have another chapter after being as sick as Elliot was.
Yeah.
I mean, you are amazing, and we all call you our miracle man, but actually it's a fact. Yeah. Because to watch you live your life now versus even 3 years ago is a dramatically different person. Yeah. Happy, just so grateful.
Every day is happy. Every day is a gift.
Yeah. Every day is a gift. And you're living a more fulfilled life.
Yeah, I think you truly do feel better. There's a really interesting, the hormones and the chemicals that the tumor actually gives off, can also affect like mood and all that kind of stuff. Energy, obviously your pancreas wasn't working properly. Your A1C was climbing, which is insulin, blood sugar, metabolism, which is very normal with a pancreatic cancer situation.
Sleep so quietly.
Sleeping, right? You were snoring a lot. You were having disrupted sleep, but I think you also were eating sugar. You, like me, have a sweet tooth. I, like you, I guess, have a sweet tooth. And so I think that's definitely been one of the biggest
changes. Way back.
Yeah, the sugar. And like the sugar caused cancer. I don't think any single thing causes cancer, but it certainly doesn't help, and it probably takes away space from, causes inflammation, adds to inflammation rather, takes space off of your plate of other things you could be eating. So, I think that this is like, hugely transformative. Okay. Switching gears just a little bit before we wrap. So most of you guys know the first episode we had, I shared about my journey getting to where, I want to be a dietitian, started at age 11. So Mom and Dad, can you, give everybody some reasonable insight I don't think that there's anything you could really say that people don't know, but that I would be embarrassed rather about. They probably don't know. Although you're smiling at me. You probably have some things you could burn me with. But so let's not burn me completely. But
nothing to burn you ever.
You want to know what your favorite foods were growing up?
Yes. What were my favorite foods?
I'll go for it. What were her faves? Well, 1 or 10.
Sloppy Joes. We would have Sloppy Joes. We would have them frequently. She was always a fish lover. And so we would also have probably gray sole a few too many nights, but they were easy to, I would prepare dinner a lot for her.
Oh boy, I think I lived in a different house. I was going to say pasta.
Oh yes.
And black and white cookies.
Black and white cookies.
Definitely.
Right? Sugar Smacks, love that Sugar Smacks cereal. Right.
We lived 2 blocks up until her 8th grade year. We lived 2 blocks from her school. And on the way home, she would stop across the street at a little delicatessen that was neighborhood. And they actually had a sandwich named after Isabel called the Isabel sandwich. And it was turkey on white bread with mayonnaise
And mustard. So strange.
And that was
It's like good old Lord.
that and a black and white cookie every day as a snack on the way home was what fueled our little girl. And
what was my energy like though? Did I have a lot of energy?
Well, I was saying,
very
energetic.
Sat on the sofa on Saturday mornings when you and I would go to work out until she was like, what?
Well, yes, but she was 11? She was always up early. So always up early, always wanting, what are we going to do today, Mom? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? So I can't say that she wasn't energetic that way. She was. I will say that excess amounts of sugar, such as pancakes with maple syrup, were not a good thing for Isabel, because they would overload her early on, and she'd absolutely dissolve after a nice round of pancakes with maple syrup and butter on a Saturday morning, which was crushing because she wanted it, but when she would have it,
so it wasn't like that. I mean, what kid in the 90s was like eating? We weren't. I mean, right? You guys are not like hippies feeding me like vegetables and grasses.
But we had a very balanced diet.
Sorry. Okay, so I was like not like the most desiring to be athletic kid.
No,
absolutely no.
No.
And then, I guess, you started your swimming. At Kent.
So when
Chapin.
So you were on the varsity swim team.
We were talking about your swimming yesterday, because to be the captain of the varsity swim team, I think in like 9th grade, you made the varsity team at Kent.
I did.
And then you became the captain in junior and senior year. That was major.
Right.
That was major. And every single swim tournament we were at.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I was never the best. I've never had a desire to like beat other people.
That was
just enjoy myself and work against myself. I think as an only child, my brain I get overwhelmed with like multiple people on teams and stuff. So obviously was a team player, and I had, I got
swimming was always your thing.
Most spirit award and all that, but like I was never going to be the one like winning the trophies. It's just like not. I never was a desire of mine. Either.
You ran cross country in the springtime.
I did.
Spring
and
fall.
Individual sports.
Yeah, individuals and more individual sports.
Yeah, I always had stomach aches as a kid, and so I think I was like acutely aware. That's all.
Black and white cookies might have had something to do with it.
The stomach, though, we determined along the way was a way of not doing. It was an excuse.
Excuse.
Well, I will say this because I told one of the babysitters one time that I said, you watch, if she doesn't want to go to a practice, she doesn't want to go to a workout, or doesn't want to go to gymnastics, she'll tell you she has a stomach ache. And she used to try this on me in the afternoons.
But I did really have stomach aches.
Well, you did, but they would amazingly disappear as when we get down, and we'd have this great big argument. And I finally told the babysitter, she says, but she can't go. She's going to get sick. I said, take a bucket and tell her you're going to let her get ill in the bucket. If that's the case, and watch what happens.
So happy.
We get to the elevator, and we weren't quite so ill. We get down to where the doormen were and going out the door. And we were definitely,
maybe that was anxiety.
Well, it's possible that was it. And on the way up the street to wherever we were going for the afternoon, it would disappear. So the babysitter thought I was absolutely the worst father in the world to tell her to do this until it happened. She said I wouldn't. And she was a philosophy major at Columbia. She said, I wouldn't believe that if I didn't see it with my own eyes. I said, you see, all you got to do is figure out what are the buttons.
Well, so, yeah. So, all right, we heard a little bit about my favorite foods.
Did she want to run her own business as a child? The answer is yes. We are living in London, and Isabel is 3 to 4 years old, and she would see both her mother and father go off to work. And I remember, and she'd get up with me. I would get up every morning. It was up at 5 to 5:30, and Isabel would get up and be with me to talk about whatever she wanted to talk about, play with her trucks. And as I would shave and get ready to go to work. And one day she surprised me and said, well, I've got to go to my office today too. At which point in time I almost cut my ear off. And I said, really? She said, yes. I said, you have a business? Why, yes, I do. Would you tell me what your business is, Isabel? Putting balloons on sticks. And I said, fantastic. And where do you do this? Oh, in my office. I said, is it in the neighborhood? Yes, it is. Do you have anybody in the office with you? Oh, yes, I have 3 or 4 people. At which point I asked her to name me the 3 or 4 people. And coincidentally, they happen to be the same 3 or 4 people, including her secretary or assistant, which was in her mother's office. So there was a little bit of paralleling on this. But early on, you could tell she wanted to have her own business and strike her own path.
Which, you know, it didn't happen. It was always something I wanted, but it happened kind of more quickly than anticipated. The stars aligned. The stars aligned, and I would say, you know, I think I've been so lucky to be supported by, you know, Paul and I've been together for 8 years. So he hopped in 2 years into the business. You guys have been, you know, so fundamental in helping me.
Fundamental in graduation there from, you know, grad school. It was so clear that that was your track.
Yeah.
There was
I've
no
wanted to do it
question.
since I was 11, but then it sort of is
more.
more
All came together.
All came together.
Yeah.
Podcast was always on the bucket list. And when Dad was sick last year, I needed a passion project. So the podcast was started. It was originally supposed to be started.
We've had some absolutely fantastic, all of them have been so informative, and
thank you for listening.
Always listening, and all your guest speakers and everyone. It makes such a difference because you leave a great mark on what we all need to know.
Well, it's, you know, I think having real conversations from like real people about their own journeys, I think is really important and relatable, because everybody out there is going through something and has stuff. And if, you know, just getting a little bit of hope or hearing how, I think like if I can do anything with this podcast, it's to help people feel more normal in whatever they're going through in their journey. And so, you know, this has been such a treat to have you guys on, and maybe it will be the first of a few. And Polly and I are going to have our own to talk about, you know, his journey in a little more depth, but if he'll be a guest.
I think we all just learned about that together.
Aren't you a lucky fellow, Paul?
But thank you everybody for listening. As always, you can catch us on Instagram, Isabel Smith Nutrition, and we'll see you right back here.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you. Such fun celebration.
Here.
Thanks for celebrating the 100th episode. So thanks, friends, for listening, and we'll see you back here right next time on the Wellfuel Podcast. As always, thanks so much for listening to the Wellfuel Podcast. We're so happy to have you. To make sure you don't miss a beat, please subscribe either on Apple or Spotify, because we have episodes dropping once or more a week with tons of great content. If you want to make sure that you're up to date on everything we're doing in the business with our clients and new offers and all the things, make sure that you check us out at Isabel Smith Nutrition on Instagram and isabelsmithnutrition.com. See you guys soon.